I might love talking movies, but my favorite hobby in between all that is playing video games. And in the year 2021, where I watched over 300 movies, I also played over 16 brand new video games spanning tons of different characters, spanning tons of different worlds. And it's time to dive in and rank all 16 video games that I played in 2021. Now, again, these are all new to the year 2021. I obviously played others that had come out but years before. I love replaying games as well, so it's gonna be fun to dive in and rank all my games. And make sure to leave a comment and let me know what your favorite video games were from this year. This is of course in collaboration with Cody Leech, the man, the myth, the legend, over there on his channel. You'll find his ranking as well down below. It'll be posted at the exact same time that this video is up. So without further ado, it's time to dive in and rank all 16 games from worst to best. Coming down at my number 16 is 12 Minutes, starring a voice cast of Willem Dafoe, Daisy Ridley, and even James McAvoy. I was out of my mind excited when this was announced, and playing it is easily one of my least favorite and least memorable games as that. Now, I love the concept of this. Imagine you come home from work, you go into your wife, you visit her back, and all of a sudden, this cop shows up, kills you and your wife, and you restart the day, and you're stuck in this time loop over and over and over again until you can figure out what is going on. That concept is absolutely fascinating. These voice casts is great. It's played from a top-down perspective, which I thought was interesting. It's very much a point-and-click puzzle type of game to figure out this story. Now, all of that working, this is a fascinating game that I wanted more of, sadly. I find the thing with this and its limitations is due to this being an indie developed game. The thing is once you get stuck in a loop and you're stuck trying to figure out the next step, I started feeling a little bit more frustrated than having fun, as I just wanted to figure out what that next piece of the story was. And as some of the loop elements, they do feel repetitive in its nature. Some of the same voice dialogue, some of the certain things of that. And I would have really much appreciated a little bit more deeper dive into certain elements like that, and even more of a fleshed out world into its background. I was more just interested in figuring it out to finish the story, but as I got towards the last half of the game, I just sat there absolutely frustrated, not because of what was going on, but just because of how repetitive it feels. I feel like this maybe would have worked in a 2-hour structure way better in the way that it was. Maybe you guys beat it faster than I did. I think this game works in its concept and its idea it's trying to do. It's executed in a manner that is great for the budget it had, but can you imagine if this actually had that stronger top tier budget? The script is really good when it's firing on all cylinders, but when it gets to those repetitive acts, that's when I started to not have as much fun with this one. Coming down to my number 15 is one of my more anticipated games of the year, and that was Back 4 Blood. Back in the day, I was a major fan of Left 4 Dead and Left 4 Dead 2, played the shit out of those, and even sometimes go back to playing those. So when I heard that they were making kind of this spiritual successor, Back 4 Blood, you count me in, I'm grabbing my friends, we're going to kill zombies. And it was fine. I didn't love this game. I found this game to just be fine. It hasn't really pulled me back into the atmosphere yet. And I play it here and there, but for me, the big charm of playing Left 4 Dead and Left 4 Dead 2 was that online mode of half the people playing zombies and half the people playing humans. And having that excluded from here is one of the biggest detriments to this entire game. I understand they have a multiplayer versus game, but anytime I've played it, even with coordination with friends or whatever you're doing, it's still not a lot of fun. I liked going through the worlds, the stories, and trying to stop these humans, or even in general trying to get past these hordes of zombies. And when you're playing just campaign, just trying to fight the zombies, it can be fun in that element, and I do have fun with that. The shooting mechanics, all sorts of things like that are fun. The card system's a little bit confusing and not really my cup of tea. I like the more simplified type of shooter, but I do appreciate what they were going for, and I do like each of the characters, even though I can't tell you a single name, and I also can't really tell you a single backstory, but I do like how each one has its different qualities and quirks. I just wanted a lot more personality to this game like the original Left 4 Dead's had. I don't feel that personality when playing Back 4 Blood. I find it to be a great idea that really much builds off of what Left 4 Dead was, but never touched into the soul of Left 4 Dead. So I expected a lot more from this. Maybe updates will fix it. And coming down to my number 14 is kind of an underrated one called Outriders. Now, I haven't beaten this one completely, but I did put a lot of time into this one, and I overall really liked Outriders. Outriders. It kind of reminded me of the likes of Gears of War mixed with this such as Destiny. So if you like both of those, you might actually appreciate this one. It is on Game Pass, and I do wish I actually had friends that would have picked this one up, because maybe I would have been more inclined to put hours into it. The combat is fresh, the shooting is awesome, and I do like some of the loot mechanics. This one kind of just falters a little bit lower because, again, I didn't have too many friends to play this one with, and the story didn't completely hook me. It was more of the gameplay loop that had me invested within this one. Now, coming down, my number 13 is one of my more anticipated games of the year, but also one of my most disappointing games of the year, and that is Battlefield 2042. I was out of my mind excited for Battlefield 2042. Everything it was hyping up to be, it looked like to be that next great first-person shooter that we're needing. But something inside of me made me forget that, yeah, EA is making this damn game, and well, now we see how it came out. This game was a buggy, glitchy mess that has absolutely been fixed since day one, thank God. Because when I picked it up day one, I absolutely did not like this game. But the reason this game is a little bit higher than the other ones, even though this is probably one of the worst made games on this list, it is because of my friends. I've had so much time, so much fun playing this game with my friends, and that is what hooked me into Battlefield. I don't care about the progression. I don't care about getting really much kills. I like just having fun with my friends, getting in like these hover boats and going up the side of a building and then like jumping out and killing. Like, that is the fun elements of Battlefield. If you don't have any friends to play Battlefield with, there's no campaign in this, so you better just like multiplayer, and if you think it's a buggy mess like I did without my friends, then you're going to sit there frustrated. This is a game that needs team coordination sometimes, and most of the time just playing with friends. But I will give credit where credit is due. I really do like the hazard mode, and I think fleshing it out even a little bit more could make it to be one of the top tier multiplayer modes in the Spear. As well as diving in, the Battlefield Portal mode is fucking awesome. I love that mode, and I think it's so cool, especially because some of the older Battlefield games are some of my favorite games of all time, and being able to play elements of those, that was great. There's a lot to love in Battlefield 2042, and I'm sure it'll only grow on patches and updates, but, you know, games shouldn't be like this anymore. Again, this is only on the placement of this because I get to play with my friends. Now, my number 12 is absolutely one of the most surprising games of 2021 for me, and that is Call of Duty Vanguard. Call of Duty Cold War was an absolute shitbox for me. Once I started playing it, I was like, wow, I really like the zombies for this, but then it got repetitive, boring, and too easy, and I'm a big zombies guy when it comes to Call of Duty. Multiplayer for Cold War really wasn't my cup of tea, and the campaign was honestly pretty god-awful. So, coming back around on this, I was really hoping Vanguard would be the one, but when it comes down to Sledgehammer games, I haven't been a fan of any of their Call of Duty games either. Very disappointing from all those perspectives. But, you know, it seems like all the studios were coming together to really help with this one, and as a Call of Duty fan, it's fine. But the multiplayer is where it really excels for me personally. That's the thing that has actually hooked me into the gameplay loop and earning those things to bring into Warzone to have fun with it. Now, I get the mechanics and the whole buyer's purchases and the consumer marketplace and that thing. I understand what they're doing. But it works. And I only did get this game for like $20, so I'm not even going to complain. I literally spent $20 on this one. I don't like the zombies mode. They need to fix stuff on there. I need round-based maps, not this bullshit mode they have. And the campaign is actually pretty good. I do like the campaign from what I played. The graphics are good. This feels like Modern Warfare, the last one, which was actually really good and surprising, but now on this engine within World War. So it reminds me of World at War, which I think is one of the more underrated Call of Duties, mixed with the Modern Warfare engine that we just got. I'm liking what I'm playing. Is it completely sucking me in? No, but I do like playing this with one of my friends who's also super into Call of Duty, so thankfully this one's not bad. Now at my number 11 is Super Mario Party Superstars, the brand new Super Mario game for the Nintendo Switch. Just got this one and I am having such a blast with it. I love Mario Party games, and the fact that this is taking some of the greatest maps ever made and some of the greatest mini games from the Nintendo 64 and GameCube was a dream come true. Really much the only reason it's lower on this list is because, one, I haven't put too much time into this game, and two, I'm a little bit disappointed with the lack of amount of characters that you can actually play as well as the maps. Yes, there are a ton of mini games in here, but I would have really much appreciated more fleshed out maps. It seems like we only got ones from the Nintendo 64 days, and I'm actually hoping that they add in a free update, some more from the GameCube era days. It's supposed to be a celebration of all the Mario parties that have come to be, because for me, the Nintendo 64 and the GameCube ones were some of the best in this entire franchise. Really much, I don't think there's been a greater one since then, and while yes, this is a celebration of fun for that, I just wanted a couple more maps and a couple more characters to play as. Now we're getting into my top 10, guys, and if you guys are still here, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button if you love talking movies and TV, and I'm sure if you're here, you'd be like, well, Zach, I like talking games. I also love talking games, and if you want to talk more games with me, I do have a podcast channel, two great people, Christian Eulenberg and, of course, Leo Rydell over at Critics Play Games. That link will also be down below. Go subscribe over that channel. We love talking video games over there, doing a video game podcast, reviews, reactions, all sorts of things like that, and a lot more is coming to 2022. We just started it later this year and have kind of been finding the fine-tunes of it all, but 2022 is going to be the year for that. And as well, don't forget to go over to Cody Leech's channel as well, because he's a great guy, and I can't wait to see what his ranking is. Now at my number 10, it is Diablo 2 Resurrection. Now, one of my favorite games of all time is the original Diablo 2. It is a fantastic game that absolutely blew me away from every single turn, and I played the shit out of that from a kid to all the way till Diablo 3 came out. And then I enjoyed Diablo 3, but I always kept going back to Diablo 2. And the fact that they were remastering it, I was out of my mind. I love the graphics. I like that they were pretty much just keeping the same solid fundamentals of what Diablo was. The reason this is so far below for me, though, is while, yes, it is so true to its purpose of what Diablo is, the problem with that is it's a little bit dated in that gameplay style, and I kind of wish they actually would have ported over some of the gameplay elements from Diablo 3, or maybe even what they're doing with Diablo 4, to really further out a more fresh view of Diablo, because it is a slower paced game. I like the hardness of it. This is definitely one of the more harder Diablo games, and I like that they kept that in there. I just definitely wanted a little bit more when it came down to the combat and its style and its movement, and the other element into this is the server errors absolutely crushed this game for me, and sometimes I still run into these server errors. There are some fundamentals that should be way easier to run in this. I enjoyed this game for what it is, but it's still, even though it brought me back so many nostalgic memories, I feel like it could have even been ported better. My number 9 is Deathloop. Now, I saw 10 out of 10s, 9.5s out of 10s, excelling reviews for this game, and I was excited for it because I like Arcane, but I've never loved Arcane's games. I think Dishonored and Dishonored 2 are great games that they're not my cup of tea. Like, I'm not a huge person when it comes down to stealth and all sorts of things like that. So Deathloop, I wasn't that excited for, but the reviews piqued my interest. I went and got it, and I liked it a lot. I think it doesn't warrant all the 10 out of 10s. I wouldn't even say this is game of the year, but there are great elements in here that really work. And I was thoroughly impressed to see how Deathloop was able to bring about such a beautiful nature in its own style. And I'm also very impressed to see the graphics, the characters. I find this game to just be such a fun time. But I wanted more when it came down to the story. The story is very much told through just talking moments and finding reports and all things like that. And there's a brilliant story all layered in under here. But when you get to the ending and you start to find out certain reveals, I feel like it was a little bit cheaped out. And especially, there's 3 endings to the game. The ending I got, I liked. And honestly, going back and replaying some of the other ones, that was the best ending. But I didn't leave wholly satisfied playing Deathloop. I love the combat, I love the graphics, I love this world. I wanted more from the characters itself. Whereas Dishonored, I wanted more from some of the other elements, but I've always found that the story was the strongest in Dishonored, and I was hoping to get that here. If Deathloop just had a little bit of a better story in the way that it was telling it, it would have been great. But it was masterful the way that it, like, once it kicks into your head, you're like, okay, I can go here, kill this person, kill that person. Because the whole concept of the story is you have to kill all these certain guards or leaders within a whole life cycle, a whole day. If you die, you restart your entire day. It's fun, but it's one that I wanted a little bit more of. And at my number 8, it is Resident Evil Village, which bottles down and tops down, bringing about the same franchise that we know and love, but also doubling down on what Resident Evil 7 did from the first person's perspective. Now, I loved 7 until the last act. I think ever since you killed the evil mother in that game, it just kind of went downhill from there, and it was fine for what it was, but I was excited to see what Resident Evil Village would do next. Now, I think Resident Evil 8 is actually a better game than 7, but when it comes down to its scares, it has one of the scariest sequences that I've ever played in my entire life. Here's a little bit of a clip from that.
Ah! Oh, open! Ah! Ah! Open, you fucking thing! Open!
As well, diving in from there, the thing that really bothered me in this game was not the combat, because I think the combat was great. Nothing about the location, nothing about the graphics, nothing about the world building or anything of that nature. And I even liked overall the story being told here. I didn't like how the story in general was structured throughout, and I wanted a little bit more from that development into this world, and it feels like certain things were cut out or missing throughout it all, especially the main antagonist of this all, Mother Miranda. There should have been so much more to this character, and I just wanted a little bit more when it came down to that. Other than that, though, I did really like Resident Evil Village, and it makes me excited to see what they do with the next one. And at my number 7, it is one of the hardest games I've played this year, but God, is this a phenomenal one. That is Returnal. Going back to another Deathloop cycle game, we had 12 minutes, Deathloop, and now, of course, Returnal, which is the same thing. You crash land on an alien planet, and if you die, doesn't matter how far you are in the game, you are restarting. Sometimes you'll keep certain things, but overall, you are restarting from day one. It is an intense thing. Imagine Demon Souls, but you're stuck in the Deathloop. It is insanely crazy and badass. The graphics, the gameplay, this was truly the first big PS5 PlayStation exclusive, taking in everything that the PlayStation 5 does and doubling down on it. I fucking love this game. The only reason it's a little bit lower on this is it sucks because I don't know if they've added this, and I think they might have. If you're playing in a loop, you can't quit. So, like, if you're, like, 4 worlds in, and you get off, that's it. You can't play anymore. Start from the first part. That was really one of my only biggest issues with it, but I was fascinated from this world, and I really loved Returnal. And at my number 6, it is It Takes Two, one of the best co-op games I have ever played in my entire life. There's something about this game that makes it such a special, unique type of experience, and especially playing it with a loved one, a friend, or a family member. Right now, I'm currently going through it with my girlfriend, and it is one of the most fun experiences I've had playing a co-op game in years. Now, there's not much that I want to get into this, but imagine Pixar meets Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. It's all sorts of that nature. 2 adults get put into these toys and they have to find their way and maybe even find their daughter. Now, the reason they're like this is because they're getting a divorce and her daughter just wishes that her family would just stay together. It's sweet, it's sorrow, it's dark, it's creepy at times, but it's fucking awesome, and every hour there is something different that you're doing, which I find it to be so unique. Number 5 is my favorite Nintendo Switch game of the year, and that is Metroid Dread. I loved this game from top to bottom. Every single ounce of it I loved, besides some of the repetitiveness with certain boss battles towards the end of the game. Other than that, this is the first Metroid game that has hooked me since maybe even the second Metroid Prime game. I've always loved the character of Metroid and Samus and everything that kind of goes about into this world and lore, but something about Dread made it back in harkening back to the Game Boy Advance and when I would play certain Metroid games on there, and I love that. It was so simplified, so pure, but also hardcore, and it was a lot of fun. I go back and play this one quite a bit, and if you haven't played Metroid Dread, it is one of the reasons to get a Nintendo Switch. At my number 4, we have the Mass Effect trilogy. Now, maybe I'm cheating on this because Mass Effect is one of my favorite gaming franchises of all time. 2 of these games are, in fact, 2 of my favorite games of all time, and I absolutely love the Mass Effect franchise in all of its honor. So when they announced they were doing a remaster, I was so worried because Andromeda just never really worked for me. I actually beat that one for the first time this year, and it's not that bad. I did a whole video on Critics Play Games, so you can go check that out. But Mass Effect's trilogy, it reminded me why I love this franchise so much, and it made me so emotionally invested because this time around, I changed a lot of what I usually do, my love interest, and also, I actually played Mass Effect 1 fully, full out, instead of just rushing through it. I put so much time into it, and I really developed relationships with Liara and some of my other crewmates in there, and seeing how that ties into 2 and continuing that relationship, and then going into 3, it is one of the most emotional experiences that I've ever had. Why is it lower? Well, I don't want to cheat, because honestly, this probably would have been my number 1, so I wanted to keep a new game into my number 1, but I love this game. The only thing I would have liked more from this remaster is to actually hone in all of the combat from 3 all into 1 and 2. I would have liked a little bit more of an overhaul on that, but other than that, I fucking love this, and I'm going to be replaying it again next year. Now, guys, we're heading out to my top 3, and my number 3 favorite game of the year is Ratchet and Clank Ripped Apart. God, what a great game this was. I loved Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart so much, especially the new character Rivet. God, what an amazing new character this was, and I can't wait to see the journeys that her and Ratchet will have in the future. There's something about this game that, again, I talk about Returnal being one of the first big PS5 exclusives to use the engine and everything that the console can do, but this was probably the game that actually excelled that even more. Graphics, storyline, structure, gameplay, all of it is working on such a high level, and it's like, I actually went back and played the PlayStation 2 version of the original Ratchet & Clank, and seeing where that game goes to this one, it is absolutely mind-boggling how crazy it is. I truly loved Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart, and I loved how this story actually was pretty emotional. This is what I've been wanting from a lot more games developing, going into those mature realms, because you can have fun playing games, But when you have and write in such an organically emotional story, that's what Ratchet and Clank did. It's one of the most emotional ones yet, and I can't wait to see what Insomniac does next with the Wolverine game, the next Spider-Man game, and whatever they do with the Ratchet and Clank franchise. Now we come out to my number 2, which might be the most surprising game of the year for me, and that is Halo Infinite. Now, Halo Infinite, I have been very much not on the bandwagon for this game. I haven't really liked the 343 game in a while. Halo 4, I liked what they were doing for it, but Halo 5 kind of soured that for me and overall made me go back and just be like, okay, I guess Halo 4 really wasn't my cup of tea, especially with the story. And the multiplayer for Halo just hasn't been really my jam since Halo 3. I love Halo Reach, but even with that, the multiplayer I didn't put too much time into. Halo Infinite is the first Halo game in a while to not just excel in the multiplayer, because the multiplayer is absolutely perfect. That's exactly what they need to do with it. And I've been saying this about Halo. You don't need to change anything or even make it feel like Call of Duty or any of these modern day shooters. Just refresh it in a way like Doom and Wolfenstein did for those respective games, keeping the essence of what the games were, but still refreshing it and making it fresh in its own light. Halo does that by continuing and making it feel like a Halo game that was made around when Bungie was there, but also doubling down and making it a fresh take. I don't love the whole battle pass system. I actually wish that was a little bit done better, but besides the multiplayer is addictive and I love it, and I can't wait to see what else they add to it. On top of that, the story was the thing I was most worried about, and I fucking loved it. It is about, I'm going to do a whole video essay actually on this about Critics Play Games. I'm writing the script right now. But in a sense, this is the story and really much diving into who Master Chief is. Who is the man under the mask? What do we think of him? What does he think of himself? And what do other people think of that man? It is absolutely great, and I've never been on the camp of saying Halo should have open world, but God, was the open world grand in here as well. It's the right direction to go with here. It felt like Breath of the Wild with a little bit of a Halo world. I would have liked the world to be a little bit bigger, but damn, did I love this game. Absolutely one of my biggest surprises besides my number 1, which let's get into my number 1. And my number 1 is Guardians of the Galaxy. Now, this is, of course, developed by Square Enix, who just did the Avengers game last year, which not a lot of people were fans of. I thought it was fine. It wasn't, like, the biggest cup of tea in the world. I was just kind of sat there like, really? This is the game we're getting? And I've still played it, like, with certain add-ons, but it's never, again, hooked me to the point. Guardians of the Galaxy hooked me from the start. Not just from the music, not just from the world, but absolutely from the characters involved. When this game was announced, it had been heavily rumored for such a long time, and the announcement of it, I was like, this looks fun. A little bit disappointing you can only play as Star-Lord. I wanted to play as everyone else, but I like how this is. The combat reminded me of Mass Effect meets Kingdom Hearts, and even in the sense and style of what the Avengers was trying to go for. I liked being able to tell people what to do and what Groot or Rocket or what ability they should do to beat this person, and it made every moment fun. The bosses, the characters, all of those things work. The story goes to comic book era places that I would have never thought movies would or games would do in any era sort of things. There are certain things in here that I'm like, oh my God, they did that. And it works wonders the way that they further out. They really much bring in and hone the spirit of what Guardians of the Galaxy is from the comics, the movies, but also bring it about into its own self without disrespecting any of the characters. I love this game. I love how emotional it got me. And again, everything works. Every character is fleshed out in a way to where maybe at one point you're like, I don't know if I like this version of Drax, but then the next moment you do. And then maybe, same thing with Gamora, no, next moment you do. They grow, they grow, they grow. I love how you have discussions with your crewmates. There's such a grand thing. And no other game has given me goosebumps this year besides this one. When you call them in for a huddle and you're going in, you're trying to motivate them on to do, and when it kicks in, you hit the player and the music starts kicking ass and you kick ass. I fucking love this game. The only thing that holds this game back for me, and honestly, like, because I don't think any of these games were perfect, to be honest, but the only thing that holds this game back for me is I think it is a tad bit too long. Sometimes it gets a little bit repetitive, and I do think there should have been a couple more RPG elements overall to give the game a little bit more refreshing flair and some replayability, but overall, I love this game, and if you haven't played it yet, you absolutely should. Guys, that's my 16 games that I've ranked from worst to best that I played in 2021. So many games coming out in 2022, so much content coming out in 2022, movies, TV, and all my gaming content will also continue to be over on Critics Play Games. Guys, thank you so much for watching this again. Head on over to Cody Leech's channel. Can't wait to see his ranking on all the games he's played. And I can't wait to hear your guys' thoughts as well down below in the comment section. So again, hit that like and subscribe button, comment down below, and until next time, stay classy.